Thanks so much for joining me in the Listen Up Girl podcast. I'm your host, Zach Brandos Friedman. Today is Sunday, September 14th, and I bring you LGBTQ plus news several times a week. My first story is Queer Resistance on the Runway. At the Brooklyn Museum, fashion wasn't just about clothing, it was about survival, resistance, and joy. Dapper Q's 10th annual fashion show brought butch cowboys, queer cyberpunks, and trans masculine heartthrobs onto the runway. But the larger message was political. Queer communities will not be silenced. Anita Dolce Veta, editor in chief of Dapper Q and executive producer of the event, said this year's theme was directly tied to today's climate. She pointed to rising anti LGBTQ extremism, cutting in nonprofit funding, and the increase of censorship in queer voices in art and education. Her quote was, "Right now, it is a very scary time, but we're not going anywhere, and the Brooklyn Museum has our back." The event transformed the runway into a stage for resistance with 7 queer-led fashion brands showing bold collections, models strutted with joy and defiance, using the fashion as protest, a reminder that queer art is not only about expression, but survival in hostile times. Next story is Lady Liberty is reimagined as a Black trans woman. The Statue of Liberty has stood in New York Harbor for over 140 years, and it's as a symbol of freedom, a gift from France in 1884. But now a striking new reimaging is forcing people to see liberty in a different light. Renowned artist Amy Sherald celebrated her stylized portraits of African Americans and for painting Michelle Obama's official portrait in 2018. Unveiled her 2024 work, Transforming a Liberty. Instead of the familiar torch and robe, Lady Liberty is shown as a Black transgender woman in a flowing blue gown with pink bob haircut, holding a bouquet of flowers instead of a torch. The model was Aria Bassett, a Black trans performance artist chosen for her strength and visibility. Sherald says the work isn't about replacing the original statue, but about expanding what liberty can mean. Freedom for those who have often been excluded from America's promises. The painting is being hailed as one of the most provocative and inspiring works of the decade. Next, trans people and mass shootings. This is about the data. And debates following tragedies, transgender people are often scapegoated, accused of being dangerous or violent. But the numbers tell a different story. A study from the Violence Protection Project at Hallam University looked at every mass shooting in the U.S. between 1966 and 2025 July. Out of 201 mass shooters, only one transgender. That's less than 1%. By contrast, the vast majority of mass shooters, 55.7%, were white men. The researchers say the data proves what advocates have argued for years. Scapegoating trans community not only spreads misinformation, but distracts from the real cause of violence. In an era when politicians and commentators fear being exploited, the study is a reminder that facts matter. I mean, where the people come up with these stories about transgender people being the cause of mass shootings when the data is right there. I mean, come on. Like, people have to really start questioning some of these facts that come out from people's mouths. And you got to research. You can't just think something is true because somebody says it. Next, a parent's change of heart on trans kids. So Danny Cox once prayed he wouldn't have a transgender child. He said, "I can do LGB, but not the T," he admitted in an interview. None of that made sense to me, but personal experience changed everything. He spoke with uncloseted media and the Gander newsroom. Cox shared how living through his child's transition reshaped his beliefs. What began as confusion and fear turned into acceptance and love. His story is one of the many being shared publicly as more parents confront their own biases and learn to see their children clearly for the first time. Cox says the journey wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. He said, "What I realized is that my job isn't to understand everything right away, it's to love my child." That's an amazing story. We need more stories like that. We need more people that will open their eyes and love people for who they really are. So awesome. Next, we have Netflix renews The Hunting Wives. Fans of the thriller rejoice. Netflix has officially renewed The Hunting Wives for a second season. Starring Malin Ackerman and Brittany Snow, the series quickly found a loyal following thanks to its mix of dark drama, scandalous storytelling, and unapologetically queer characters. The renewal was announced with a playful video featuring the two stars, complete with inside jokes and even the return of The Wig, which became a fan favorite in season 1. Season 2 promises to pick up where the twist left off, delivering more camp, more drama, and more queer representation. For fans who worried the story might be a one-season wonder, the announcement feels like a victory for queer storytelling and mainstream media. I have to admit, I have not watched this show because I have too many other shows to watch, but I keep seeing more and more stories about it, so I feel like I need to give it a chance. So one weekend, I'll maybe binge watch it. Next, in Oregon lawmaker leaves GOP over book bans. In a bold political move, Oregon state legislator Cyrus Javidid has left the Republican Party to become a Democrat. Javidid said that he could no longer align with a party he sees as more interested in burning things down than governing. One of the breaking points came during the debates over book bans. Javidid voted against book banning in schools, arguing that students, especially marginalized ones, need to see themselves reflect in stories. The real issue, he said, was whether kids, gay kids like my son, Black kids, Muslim kids, could still find stories on the shelves that reflect their lives. His defection highlights the growing divide within state legislature, where queer culture battles over LGBTQ inclusion and education have become front and center. So awesome that I love it. I love it when people they make these changes for the better. Next, Miles Heiser stars in new coming-of-age drama Boots. Netflix has released the first teaser for Boots, a new coming-of-age dramedy set in the 1990s. Inspired by Greg Cope, White's memoir, The Pink Marine, the show stars Miles Heiser and Cameron Cope as closeted and directionless teenager who enlist in the Marines with his best friend Ray, played by Liam O. The series explores not just the toughness of boot camp, but the personal landmines of growing up queer in a hyper-masculine environment. The official synopsis describes it as a story about friendship, resilience, and the search for identity in a world that often rejects difference. When its sharp wit and heartfelt themes, Boot is being billed as both nostalgic and urgent. A story about finding your place where society wants to erase it. I can't wait for that to come out. I've read so many stories about that or articles about it. I think it's going to be amazing. Next, we have 8-Ball lover, and I'm not talking about Paul. Donald Trump Jr. targets trans community after shooting. After the shocking assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump Jr. used his platform not to mourn, but to attack. Appearing on the Megyn Kelly show, he claimed the transgender community poses a greater threat than terror groups. The statement came as the officials confirmed the suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, has no known ties to the trans community. In fact, there is no evidence connecting trans people to the shooting at all. Critics argue that Trump Jr.'s comments are not just inaccurate, but dangerous, fueling fear and hostility towards an already vulnerable community. The FBI has urged the public to wait for facts rather than spread misinformation, a plea unlikely to calm the political rhetoric. I think that Donald Trump Jr. is just, maybe he has some deep, dark secret that he feels like maybe he's trans and he's reflecting his I don't know, who knows? I think he's just a cokehead and he just doesn't even know what's really happening in the world, and he just says whatever comes to his mind because he's all drugged out. That's my opinion, though. Men debate exclusivity on Reddit. When is it too soon to ask, are we exclusive? That was the question posed by one man in his 40s on the Ask Gay Bros Over 30 subreddit. He's been seeing someone for less than 2 weeks when the topic of exclusivity came up, and he wasn't sure if he felt it premature. The post struck a nerve, prompting dozens of replies. Some argue that having the conversation early shows honesty and respect. Others says rushing exclusivity can create pressure and sabotage potential relationships. The thread highlights a universal truth about dating. Expectations vary widely and communication is key. For many listeners, it's a reminder that there's no single timeline for love, just one that works for people who are involved. If you care about somebody and you're starting to like them, just kind of say it, but don't like jump right into it and say, I want to get married and move in together and all that. Just like say, yeah, I really like you a lot, and maybe go from there. That's my advice. Next, Supreme Court backs trans student on bathroom access. In a closely watched case, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that transgender student in South Carolina can continue using the boys' restroom at school, at least for now. The decision allows a student to maintain his routine while the larger legal battle over bathroom access continues. LGBTQ advocates call the ruling an important step in affirming the rights of trans students who often face harassment. Opponents of the decision argue it undermines state control over education. While the case isn't resolved, the ruling sends a message. Trans students have rights and must be respected even as political battles continue. Next, twice yearly PrEP option is approved. In one of the biggest medical breakthroughs of the past year, regulators have approved a new twice yearly PrEP option for HIV prevention. Unlike the traditional daily pill, this injectable shot provides long-term protection with just 2 doses a year. Clinical studies, the new option was found to be 100% effective, a stunning result that experts say could revolutionize HIV prevention. Public health leaders note that adherence to a daily pill can be difficult, especially for people without stable housing, consistent health care, or access to medication. By reducing the burden of daily management, this breakthrough could save lives and change the future of HIV prevention worldwide. So that is my news for Sunday, September 14th. I will bring you more news on Tuesday, September 16th, so please tune in. If you're not following me, please do. And also listen to my other podcast. It is all your favorite podcast platforms, and it's called Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay. I do some great interviews with some very interesting people. Thanks for listening.